Hello, thank you for joining us today for Government Benefits 101. We have a lot to talk about. I am Michelle Morris from Consolidated Planning Group. I thank you all so much for taking the time to be with me today to go over these very important bits of information. A little bit of background before we get started and housekeeping items. I cannot see you or hear you. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. That is the easiest way for me to see the questions while I'm presenting. And I'm going to try to get to as many of your questions as I possibly can. We are recording today's webinar. We always record our webinars, and we will email them to you at whatever email you registered for this webinar with. So hopefully you didn't give us a fake address. Also, we have a podcast. So if you're listening on the podcast and you would like a copy of these slides, we'd be happy to send them to you. Just email us. The address is contact@CPG Cares. That's CPG for Consolidated Planning Group. All right. So I think that's all of the announcements. Like I said, we should be here for about an hour. So feel free to have a drink and a snack as we go through this. So the first thing I want to talk about is why should you even listen to what we have to say? Who are we at Consolidated Planning Group, and why should you care? Well, we have been in the financial services industry for over 30 years. And almost all of the families that we work with have some kind of special needs loved one, whether it be a sibling or a child, typically children. But we've been, we do life insurance, securities, investments. We're located just outside of Houston, Texas, but we serve families all across Texas and all across the United States. And we keep on growing. So we are thrilled when we have clients in new states and we can expand our reach a little bit. We are members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and we are also National Social Security advisors. So we kind of are the experts in this field, in the special needs planning arena. People come to us to talk about things like protection plans for their family, lifetime care, how much is it going to cost once you're gone for your loved one to be taken care of? We do a lot of help with transition planning, which is a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. ABLE accounts are big for us. And really, we are here to educate you and to advocate for you. There are over 263,000 financial advisors across the United States, 263,000 of them, and only about 200 of us focus on special needs planning. So that is less than 0.1% of all the financial advisors in the United States who truly understand the nuances of special needs planning. It's important that you work with an expert so that you have things set up correctly to begin with, and you don't have to spend more money to fix what somebody else did wrong. So we're going to dive right in here by starting off. We're going to talk about SSDI and SSI. These are two very important benefits for your child or loved one. They come from different sources and, they have very similar names. So of course, people get these two things confused quite a bit. So I want to explain first a little bit about the differences between SSDI and SSI. So SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance, and this is paid through the Disability Trust Fund. It is an insurance that workers earn by paying into Social Security. So all these years you work, you pay your Social Security taxes. This is where that money comes from. Now, If you are disabled and you are unable to work, you can still get SSDI benefits, even though you haven't paid into Social Security, by using your parents' record. So this has to be somebody who has a disability that started, in childhood, and they can't work for themselves, so they're able to draw from their parents' record. Okay. SSI is supplemental security income. It's a little bit different. The payments, it doesn't come from the Disability Trust Fund. It comes from general tax revenues. It is a needs-based public assistance program that is meant for people who can't work. So it pays a disabled individual as long as they can't work and they have very limited resources and income. And this is a benefit for children and adults, but they have to meet that limited income and limited assets limits. Okay, and we're going to get into what exactly those are. So I put together this page. This is kind of a new slide in our webinar. So I want you to remember that, at diagnosis, when your child is young, hopefully very young, and they have any kind of a diagnosis of a disability, you need to get them on the waiting list for the waiver programs. That's in your state. Here in Texas, these waiting lists can be 20 to 25 years. So it's important that you contact your local LIDA, which is your local intellectual and developmental disability authority. Local intellectual developmental disability authority. You call them and you get on the waiting list for the waiver programs as soon as you know that there is some sort of a disability. Then most people are not going to qualify for SSI benefits until their child turns 18. The reason for that is if your child is under the age of 18, the government is going to look at the parents' income and assets. And most parents are going to make over the income limits, or they're going to be over the asset limit. So your child won't qualify for SSI. But something magical happens when they turn 18. All of a sudden, the Social Security Administration is going to look at the child's own assets and income. And as long as they don't have more than $2,000 in their name and they're not making more than the substantial gainful amount, then they will qualify. They also have to be deemed disabled by the Social Security Administration. Now, when you get SSI, it comes along with Medicaid. So that's really helpful to a lot of families, of course. Then later on in life, once your child has been on SSI for a while and they've been getting their Medicaid, when their parent turns on their Social Security benefits. So this is if the parent is in their late 60s and they turn on their benefits, they retire. Or if a parent becomes disabled and turns on Social Security benefits, or if a parent passes away. At that point, your child will switch from SSI over to SSDI. You can only get one at a time, and SSDI is typically way more. So this is good news that your child will switch to SSDI. After they've been on SSDI for 24 months, 2 years, 24 months, they will be able to get Medicare. I need to make that bullet point a little clearer. Like I said, this is a new slide for me. I just did it about 5 minutes ago. But SSDI comes after you've been on, Medicare comes after you've been on SSDI for 24 months. And then you will be dual eligible. You'll have both Medicaid and Medicare, which is great. So they have to have, what are the rules regarding this disability? It has to be a physical or a mental impairment or a combination, This disability is something that is expected to last more than 12 months, or it's expected to result in death. Now, they do look at age, education, past work activity, things like that. But you do have to have an inability to perform substantial work activity. That means that, you're not going to be able to go and get a full-time job and work 40 hours a week and have your own health care and all of that kind of stuff. Real quick, I do see a comment in the chat box. Thank you for putting that in there. If the parent is a retired teacher in Texas, oh, then you haven't been paying into Social Security. You've been paying into the Teacher Retirement Fund. So you don't really get SSDI because the parent doesn't get Social Security benefits. So there's all kinds of, different things when you're a teacher. I get a little angry about that because I think it's kind of wacky that your kid won't be able to get their SSDI. But that's the way it is, and we can help you figure that out, okay? So, starting in 2024, the SSI benefit is going to go from $914 a month to $943. So it's going to be $943 a month starting in January. If your child is in a couple and they're married and both of them have a disability, unfortunately, you would think that they would each get $943 a month, but that is not what happens. Their combined benefit is only going to be $1,415. Unfortunately, that it seems like they kind of want to punish disabled people who get married. This is one way. Also, if you are a disabled person who gets married, you will not be able to draw SSDI. That's another way that the government seems to punish people with disabilities who get married. Write your local congressman. So, the Blue Book. The Blue Book is the name for the Social Security Administration's guide to understanding what they consider a person to be disabled. So if you look up your diagnoses in the Blue Book, you might see, okay, if your child has autism, they need to have these things to qualify for SSI, to qualify for their benefits. And it's going to be things like they can't work because of their autism, or they cannot have a gainful amount of money. If your child has an emotional disturbance, is it so bad that they need to be institutionalized, or is it, keeping them out of work or out of school? This kind of gives you the eligibility guidelines and what they consider disabled. So it's really good to take a peek at the Blue Book definitions of disability for whatever diagnoses your family member has, because that's what they're going to be looking for. That gives you an inside peek at what you need to be able to prove when you apply for your benefits. Okay, let me get this chat question. Oh my goodness. Okay. You know what? Some of these things I'm going to be answering as we go through. So I will revisit this question at the end of this webinar and answer what I haven't already answered. So bear with me there, Felicia. So when your child turns 18, like I said, they will suddenly be able to qualify for SSI. You need to try to schedule in advance. You can go online and start the application process. Sometimes it takes them several months to get around to you, but if you start the application process like right on your child's 18th birthday or the day after, they will back pay you to that date, even if they don't get around to you for several months. And, it is kind of a slow process. So do with that what you will. But you can start online. That link will be clickable when you get these slides later on today. You want to have evidence that your child's disability began before age 22, and you want to gather up their medical history. What are the doctor's names and phone numbers? What are the diagnoses that your child has? Medications they are on and what they're for. Now, they don't necessarily need to know how much, how many milligrams of what medication, but they do want to know what medications they're on and what it's for. If your child is working, they will want to see pay stubs, and they will also want to see the last 3 months of your bank statements. So if you gather up these things before your appointment with the Social Security Administration, that will be very helpful. Another tip is that you want to talk to your local Social Security office, not the federal Social Security office. They will not be able to help you. All they're going to do is redirect you to your local office. Now, some people might think that this is a little bit extra, but we're kind of extra around here. You might want to get a hold of your primary care physician and ask them for a copy of your child's records so that you can see what is in the record, what's on file, and you can make sure that everything that needs to be in there is in there before you even start the process of applying for your Social Security SSI. That way, if all of those things that are listed in the Blue Book are proven in your child's medical records. So one thing, when you're applying for SSI, you start it online and you get a phone call, and then you make an appointment for a real phone call, or you get to go into the office, however you prefer to do it. One thing that they don't tell you is that when you're applying for SSI, they are also going to do an application for SSDI. And like I said before, your child might not qualify for SSDI. So sometimes we hear that parents are getting a letter pretty quick that says you've been denied for benefits. But if you read that letter very carefully, you might find that they're talking about SSDI. I know it's tricky. Then you get all mad and you think, what? But then you realize, oh, it's SSDI. And a few weeks later, you'll get a letter saying that you do qualify for SSI benefits. Now, this can take up to 6 months and sometimes even longer. But like I said, if you start the process online, they will backdate, they will send you a check for all those months that you missed based on their problems. Now, if you forget to apply and you don't start the application process until your child is 19, well, that's your fault. They're not going to back pay for that. So once you fill out your application and you have your meeting with your local Social Security office, they're going to take your file and send it to the Disability Determination Services in Austin. So, well, that is if you live in Texas. If you live in a different state, they will send it to your state's Disability Determination Office. Those are the people who are going to request the medical records for your loved one and look through them and make sure that they truly qualify as having a disability. Now, here in Texas, you can call DDS 1-800-252-7009, and they actually answer their phones. You can ask them maybe who has been assigned to your child's file. Where are they in the process? Do they have everything that they need from your doctor's office? And then you can follow up with your doctor's office if you need them to send something else in. So it's really good that they're actually able to help you out. Okay, so let's return to some of these questions that I see here. If we get SSI and Medicaid through SSI, but then their name comes up on the Medicaid waiver program, can the adult child have both, or do you have to choose between the two? So you can have your SSI and Medicaid, and you can have your waiver. The waiver also comes with Medicaid, but if you've already got it, it just washes It's a wash, no big deal. So yes, we want you to have SSI and your Medicaid and get your waiver. You get all three at the same time. Which is better, Medicaid through SSI or Medicaid through a waiver program? Doesn't really matter. Once you get Medicaid, that's a good thing. What is the maximum income? We're going to get to maximum income limits. And child support. We'll talk about that one a little later too. Next question. Does the amount of SSDI affect their dual eligibility for Medicaid and Medicare? No. There is something called the Pickle Amendment. And it's like pickle, it's spelled like the pickle that comes on your hamburger. The Pickle Amendment says that if the amount of money that you get from SSDI pushes you above the Medicaid limit, and you've already been receiving Medicaid, you get to keep receiving Medicaid. Now, sometimes we have to be the squeaky wheel for our children, and we have to teach the people in the Social Security office things like the Pickle Amendment. Or we have to teach them that, oh no, I get both. Or, oh no, that doesn't matter. Once you learn enough by watching webinars and going through all the process, you'll sometimes find that you have to educate others, but that's okay. We're here to be our child's advocates, right? Does my child need their own bank account for their SSI benefits? And are there limits on how much money they can have in that bank account? Yes, we will get to that limit, and I'll get to that question. Okay, so let me take a pause on the questions and I will come back to them. Get through a few more of these, back to the questions, a few more slides, back to the questions. We'll go back and forth like that. So I just said that it could take up to 6 months for them to make sure that your child has this disability, and that they send your file to the Disability Determination Service in Austin. But there's an exception. If your child has what they call a presumptive disability, they pretty much don't have to take so much time. They pretty much know, oh yes, you almost automatically qualify. And they can make that determination right at your local Social Security office. It's a faster process. And it's just because they know it's very likely that DDS is going to go ahead and approve your case. So they'll make a presumptive decision. Now, there is a list, the compassionate allowance list, and you can click this link to look at what those presumptive disabilities are. Some of them are listed here. Things like if you have an amputation of the leg at the hip, if you have Down syndrome, if you're totally deaf or totally blind, if you have cerebral palsy or muscular dystrophy or muscular atrophy, if you are confined to a bed or you are immobile without the use, unless you have the use of a wheelchair, walker, or crutches, not just a recent accident, but something that it's going to be a permanent situation. If you've had a stroke that is causing you difficulties with walking or using your hands or arms, or if you have an intellectual disability, neurodevelopmental impairment like autism, with the complete inability to independently perform basic self-care activities. Those are presumptive conditions. And if you have these things, your disability is going to be approved much faster through the local office. So, can you work and still get SSI benefits? Yes, you can. Yes, you can have a job and still get SSI, but you cannot make more than the substantial gainful employment amount. We're going to get to that in one moment, but what they do is they will take a deduction off of your SSI benefit. So this kind of explains what that deduction looks like. If, for example, your loved one is making $1,200 a month earned income, then first thing they're going to do is take off $85 as an exemption. That makes the amount $1,115 that your loved one is making. They're going to divide that by 2, and now we're down to $557.50 of countable income. Then you subtract $557.50, that countable income amount, from the total benefit of $943, and you're going to get $385.50, and that is what their SSI payment will be. Okay, so you can plug in your numbers into this example and figure out how they would find your total benefit amount. Now, if your child is working and going to school, they get an additional deduction, and this is called the student earned income exclusion. So if your loved one is under 22, they have this disability, they're getting their SSI benefits, and they have a job, and they're also going to school, they're not going to count up to $2,290 in 2024. So your child can make $2,290 a month, and it won't be counted against them. It might still be, well, it might still be deducted a little bit, but it's higher than they could make if they were not in school. And when they say that your child has to be regularly attending school, they don't mean full-time like a neurotypical student goes to school from like 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. If your child is in a college or a university, 8 hours a week is enough to qualify them for this exclusion. If they're in grades 7 through 12, or if they're in a training class, or if they're homeschooled, then 12 hours a week is considered regularly attending school. Now, you have to ask them for this exclusion. When you talk to the Social Security Administration, they're not going to offer it. They're not going to automatically apply it. But just remember, it's not important to know exact numbers. But if your child is working and going to school and they're under age 22, they can get this earned income exclusion. The Red Book will help you understand more of what it looks like when your child is getting Social Security benefits, like their supplemental security income, and working at the same time. Okay, so you could check this link to learn about work, employment-related provisions of the Social Security Act. So I feel like these slides are a little bit out of order because I feel like you've been waiting to hear what that number is for a long time, but I promise I'm getting there. Let's talk about what happens if there's child support involved. Okay. If child support is a thing in your life and you are getting child support beyond your child's age 18, that is going to be considered as income for your child after they turn 18. So if your child is getting income, that's going to mess up their SSI benefits because they can only have so much money. You can't have more than $2,000 in a bank account, and you can't make more than the substantial gainful amount. So now all of a sudden they're getting child support counted as income. What do we do? Well, what you do is you have that child support redirected to a first-party special needs trust. What that means is that the money will be in a trust, so it won't be counted against them for benefits. And because there's 2 different kinds of trust. There's a first-party special needs trust and a third-party special needs trust. The first party is for money that belongs to your child. And after they turn 18, that means child support. That would be included in money that belongs to your child. The third-party special needs trust is for things like your life insurance or other assets that you have that you want to leave to your child. That's not their money, that's your money, but you're going to leave it to them. That would go to the third party special needs trust. And as long as the money is in a special needs trust, it will not count against their benefits. You do need an attorney to help you set that up. And if you don't have the money from child support directed to a trust, it's not very difficult to get that changed as long as both parties agree. But you do have to have it signed off on by a judge. So it's easier if you are going through a divorce to set this up on the front end rather than to change it later. So just a note to be aware of that. So the substantial gainful amount for 2024 is going to be $1,550 gross earnings per month. In 2023, it was 1470, sorry, 1,470. But for next year, it's going to be $1,550. That's how much your child can earn each month without cutting off their SSI or SSDI benefits. Now, you can get SSDI if you are over 18. You have that disability that began before age 22. The parent was earning income and contributing to Social Security. If the person is not married, and again, that they're not earning their own substantial gainful amount, which would disqualify them because then they would be getting their own SSDI later in life, their own Social Security benefits. So when your child starts getting those SSDI benefits later in life, when the parent turns on their Social Security, the child will get half of the parent's benefit. So let's say your child is 18, they start getting their SSI. I see a question that says, should they have their own bank account for SSI? Yeah, it's really easier if you don't commingle your money and your child's money. You can be the designated payee, that's fine. But it's easier if they have their own bank account. Now, in that bank account, your child cannot have more than $2,000. So you have to use it going through, or you have to move it. You can move your child's SSI money from their bank account to an ABLE account or to that first party special needs trust. It's just easier that way. And we'll get to more of those issues. Now, when I say that your child is going to get SSDI benefits, they're going to get half of what you get. Let's say your benefit works out to be $3,000 a month, that when you retire and you're in your late 60s and you turn on your Social Security, you're supposed to get $3,000 a month. Your child will get $1,500. It does not mean that it takes away from your amount. You will still get $3,000. Your child will be getting half of what you get. Now, when you pass away, your child's amount will go from half to 75%. So rather than getting $1,500, your child's amount will go up to 75% of your amount, okay? And they will receive that amount of money, that monthly payment, for the rest of their lives. So it's really important to make sure that you set that up correctly so that your child gets the most that they possibly can because it lasts for the rest of their life. And then again, once they've been on that benefit for 24 months, they will get Medicare, okay, once they're over the age of 18. And there are family maximums. So you might run up against a family maximum if your child, maybe you have two kids who have disabilities, and they're both drawing from one parent's record. And maybe your spouse stays at home, doesn't have a job, and takes care of your children. They might be able to draw from your Social Security record. If that's the case and you have too many drawing from your Social Security record, you could come up against a family maximum. So how do you protect your child's benefits? Well, you need to make sure that their money is in the right buckets. You need to make sure that your special needs family member, that they don't have their name set up as a beneficiary on any of your life insurance, your investments, your bank accounts, anything like that, because as soon as you pass away and they get that inherited monies to their name directly, they're going to lose their benefits. You have to have it set up to go into a special needs trust. And you also have to let other family members know that the money has to go to a special needs trust, not to Jacob Morris. That's my son's name. I'll use him for an example. Cannot leave money to Jacob Morris outright. You have to leave money to the special needs trust for the benefit of Jacob Morris. Leave it that way in your will and call any companies that have your money and set up your beneficiaries that way. Let grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles know too, because it could hurt their other benefits if it's not done correctly. Again, make sure your money is in the right buckets. Now you can set up a special needs trust or an ABLE account, or you can have both. Your child can only have one ABLE account because it is a tax benefit. But they can have money in those two places and those will not affect their benefits. We'll talk about ABLE accounts. Let me catch up on some of these questions and then we'll go into the details about ABLE accounts. We're doing pretty good on time, so bear with me. If the diagnosis is autism, is it okay to use the medical records from the child's psychiatrist rather than the primary care physician? Yeah, any specialists, psychiatrists, anybody that your child sees, as long as there is documentation that they have a disability, you can use them, that's fine. ABLE accounts have maximum limits each year. Yes, they do. Are there limits on bank accounts? If your child has their own bank account, can a guardian be a co-signer? Yes, there are limits. Your child cannot have more than $2,000 in their name and still get their SSI benefits. If their bank account is getting close to having $2,000, you can scoot some of that money over to the ABLE account. That's fine. And yes, your child's bank account can have you or another parent as a co-signer to help make sure things are going correctly for them. Is it the Social Security Administration's responsibility to inform HHS of SSDI, or is it HHS's responsibility to get the information from Social Security? Oh my gosh, so many acronyms. So, these governmental entities are supposed to be working together. They don't always do a good job. It's really your responsibility to make sure that everybody is kept up to date on what's going on with the Social Security Administration, the waiver programs, the SSDI money, and all of that. It's up to you to make sure that those get turned on and off at the appropriate times. One thing that we offer, I'll give my company a little plug here. One thing we offer is a Social Security maximization analysis. You can call us and ask about this, but basically what we do is we tell you all about your Social Security benefits, and then that leads into the SSDI benefits. So we tell you when to turn on your Social Security, when to turn on your child's benefits, how much you should be able to get, how much your child should be able to get. And you can contact my office for a run through of exactly what our Social Security analysis costs and what it will teach you and what it does. But yeah, it's pretty much up to you to tell all of the government agencies what they need to do, unfortunately. Okay, next question. Your next question, Tunis, I know that you're on our on path to work with us. So ask your questions when we talk. It's a little bit more complicated than something that we should go into in public. Okay. If I get Medicaid and if I get SSI and it comes with Medicaid, does that also come with SNAP? No, unfortunately not. You'll have to apply for SNAP separately and see if you can get that. Okay, is the 50% and 75% of how much your child gets when you turn on SSDI, is that based on the full retirement amount? Yes, it would be based on the full retirement amount. Jessica, I will tell you how to get in touch with us for personal questions. Just hang in there. We love that. Okay, which is better? Oh, yes, I went through those questions. What is the max income a child can receive and still qualify for class and Texas Home Living and HCS and the other waiver programs? They have to still qualify for Medicaid. So you still have to be under the amounts for Medicaid, which is $2,000 in the bank. The income limit is a little bit higher. It's 3 times the total amount of SSI benefits. So for this year, that total amount was like 2,700 in income. Next year, it's going to go up to whatever 3 times 943 is. Okay, that's all the questions I have for now. So let's jump back into ABLE accounts. The way an ABLE account works is that the beneficiary is the account owner. You put money in, they take out a fee to maintain the account and all of that, but then they invest the rest of that money. And the money earns income because of the interest on that investment. And that income that is earned is not taxable. So it does grow a little bit, and that's great. Unfortunately, you cannot deduct your contributions on your income taxes, your federal income taxes. Now, some states do allow you to make a deduction for that on your state income tax, but here in Texas, we don't have state income taxes, so there's no deduction available. But you can put money in the ABLE account, and it will not count against their SSI benefits or Medicaid or anything like that. You have to pay attention because there are limits on what you can use the money for and how much you can put in, and we're going to get to that. But really, if you've heard of a 529 college savings plan, that's a 529C. An ABLE account is just another section of that 529 plan. It's a 529A, and that A helps me remember ABLE. ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. So as long as it can be construed as achieving a better life experience for an individual who has a disability, you can use money from the ABLE account to pay for it. So let's go through this little chart. You can have an ABLE account as long as you have a disability that began before age 26. Contributions can be made by anybody. Anybody can put money into your ABLE account, but you can only have so much put in there each year. So for 2023, that amount is $17,000. You have until the end of the calendar year to get $17,000 into that ABLE account if you want to. Now, if your child is working, there is additional money that they can put in. As long as they don't have a retirement plan at work, they can put in an additional $13,590 for 2023. Now, you never ever want your ABLE account to go above $100,000. For 2024, that amount is going to go up slightly, how much you can put in for 2024, to $18,000, and then $14,580 if they're working. Okay, so you can put in a little bit more money, but you still can't go over your $100,000 total. And since that account is making interest, you need to be careful. If you're getting up there to $99,900 and you're going to get interest on that, you need to be careful about going over that $100,000 limit, okay? Um, the contributions, like I said, 17,000 for 2023, 18,000 for 2024. You can use the money for any qualified disability expense, which really means anything that you're using it for your child. Um, and those are not taxable. There's no penalty. There's no tax as long as you use it for your child. The growth is tax-free. You can change your investments twice a year. You can roll over the amount in the ABLE account to another child as long as that other child also has a disability. They also have to be eligible for the account. Now, at death, there is a Medicaid drawback provision to the ABLE account, which means that Medicaid can, once your child passes away, come and claim reimbursement from their ABLE account. So you don't want to leave a whole ton of money in there for Medicaid to come back and claim. But they've been helping you out all these years. They've been helping provide for your child. So it's only fair that they can come back to the ABLE account and reclaim some of that money. If there's anything left after Medicaid, you can assign it to a beneficiary. The ABLE account can pay for food and shelter, financial management services, transportation, education, vacations, computers, assistive devices, personal support systems, legal expenses. So yeah, you can really use the ABLE account for pretty much anything as long as it helps your child. Now, what is this business about without a 1/3 reduction? Why are we talking about that? The reason we're talking about this 1/3 reduction is because if you use your special needs trust to pay for certain things, they will take money off of what you're getting for Social Security, for SSI, supplemental security income. What are those things? Let's talk about that a little bit. Your special needs trust can pay for all kinds of things. Their telephone, their TV, their vocational rehab programs, their tuition, their music instruments, their eyeglasses, gas for their car, whatever. Special needs trust can pay for a lot of things. This slide isn't nearly as important as the next one. Your special needs trust should not be used to pay for rent, mortgage payments, real estate taxes, utilities like gas, electric, water, sewage, any homeowner's insurance that is required by your lender, any condo fees and charges. You cannot use it to get cash out, and you cannot use it to pay for food. So if you can't use your special needs trust for normal daily expenses like food and shelter without causing a 1/3 reduction to your SSI benefits, what are you supposed to do? Oh yeah, use your ABLE account instead. We recommend that people have both of these things because they work together. You can use your special needs trust for so many things, just not food and shelter. You can use your ABLE account for everything, including food and shelter. Now, the special needs trust, you can put as much money in as you want. You can have millions in your special needs trust. The ABLE account, there are limits on how much you can put in. So how do families use these two vehicles together? Well, perhaps grandma passes away and leaves your child $1 million. That money goes into a special needs trust. Your child needs to pay rent. Maybe you want your child to go to Marbridge or a Brookwood or a 29 acres and live in a residential community like that. So each month, Marbridge is going to cost X. You take X amount of dollars from your special needs trust, put it into your ABLE account each month, and pay Marbridge through your ABLE account. And that is how you avoid that reduction to your benefits. Okay. Let's check out a couple more questions. Can you keep money in the ABLE account as long as you don't pass the yearly limit? Yeah, you can keep money in the ABLE account and it continues to grow. Like I said, that money is an investment. Um, you don't want to leave it there for 30 years and think it's going to act like a 401k. It's not quite the same and it's not really meant to be used that way. But it's a save to spend type of an account. You know, you can have money flowing in and out as long as you stick to the limits, the yearly amount that can go in, plus the total amount that can be in there at any one time. Can the special needs trust pay for residential living fees? Well, I think I just answered that question, such as Marbridge. What a great example to use. Man, we are on the same wavelength, Tobias. Okay, so let's think about special needs planning overall. It's so important that you plan as early as you can. Now, I'm not here to slap you on the wrist and say, why haven't you gotten started yet? We're here to look towards the future and think about what can you start doing now to plan for the future for your child. Starting now is going to give you more time to make better decisions, to have a bigger impact, and to think about things in advance to make it better for your child. We also want you to be thinking about what happens after high school. There are great residential programs, transition programs, vocational programs, educational programs for after your child is out of high school. They don't need to just sit on the couch and become a professional gamer. Is a lot that they can do. So think about those things early. There can be wait lists. And of course, we do presentations about all of those kinds of programs in all of our webinars. Be careful about just assuming that your child's sibling is going to want to take care of them or be able to take care of them, or that your child is going to be wanting their sibling to take care of them. It can cause some friction in your family, and we don't want that. We just want you to be careful about that. These are some other things that we help families with all the time. We do typically 2 to 3 webinars every week. Now, today is the last webinar that we're doing for 2023. So if you miss me over the winter break, you can go to the YouTube channel and watch our videos there. And hopefully you'll join us for lots of our webinars in 2024. You can go to this link and see what we're planning for next year. Something that I am very, very, very excited to announce is that we are going to have a webinar with Temple Grandin in 2024. If you are unfamiliar with who Temple Grandin is, there's a movie. You can watch the Temple Grandin story and prepare yourself for that webinar because it is going to be phenomenal having Temple Grandin speak. So go to this link and sign up for all the webinars that you want to watch in 2024. This link will be in your email later on today. This is our team, and once I go through these last couple of slides, I'm going to get all the last questions. So get those in there before I finish. This is our team. Allison and Jeff are the owners of the company. They've got 2 special needs kids, and that's why we do what we do. Then there's myself and my bearded husband, Andy. We've got 2 kids, and we have really found that this is a passion of ours, is to help families like yours. We've got a great operations staff. Like I said, we're located just outside of Houston, but we serve families all across the United States, all across Texas. Look at these smiling faces, especially these on the bottom row. We're going to be reaching out to you. And I'm sorry, I know people hate when you get these random phone calls, but it's our job to make sure that we're helping you the most that we can. And you did give us your phone numbers and email addresses when you signed up for this webinar. So please be kind to these smiling faces. Don't hang up on us. We are only calling to see if you would like to schedule your free consultation. If you don't want us to call you, the best way to do that is to schedule yourself, and then we don't have to call. It's easy to say no, thank you, if we do call you though. So you can use this QR code. You can call our office or you can email us to sign up for your free consultation. This is over Zoom. It typically takes between 30 to 45 minutes. We want to learn about you. We want to answer your questions, and then we'll tell you about us and how we work and what our fees are and what it looks like to work with us. I promise we don't bite. We're not super pushy. We really want to make sure that your questions are answered. This page also has our links to the YouTube channel where all of our webinars live, the Instagram page, our podcast if you prefer to listen instead of watch, and our Facebook page. So all of our webinars and other helpful information is there on our Facebook page. So now that you have this and I've gotten through all of that information, let me get back to the last questions. So what happens to the special needs trust and ABLE account when the beneficiary or the child passes away? Do our kids with disabilities need to have their own wills? I think everybody should have a will, definitely. First of all, absolutely, you parents need a will. But yeah, I think even your kids should have a will because you want to make sure that beneficiaries are designated in case they don't use all of that money that they get in their trust. So with the ABLE account, like I said, Medicaid can come back and claim reimbursement. They can also do that with the first party special needs trust. With a third party trust, Medicaid cannot claim any reimbursement on that one, the third party trust. So that's why we really prefer, if you can, that's where the money goes, is into the third party special needs trust. But there are certain circumstances, and you can set up an appointment to talk in greater detail about that. But yeah, the special needs trust, if you put $1 million in there and your child does not use all of it, well, yeah, they're going to have to leave it to somebody. Great question, Beth. I think that's the first time I've seen that question. And regarding paying for Marbridge or some sort of residential community with transfers from the special needs to the ABLE account, does that $17,000 limit apply to the cumulative transfers? I think it should, Tunis. I'm gonna have to learn more about that. But yeah, there's that $17,000 limit on how much you can put into the ABLE each year. And those residential communities cost more than that. So that could cause a situation. Thank you for pointing out that scenario. I hadn't even realized that. We'll be able to answer that question more in our own talks. Send the link for the movie. I don't have a link for that movie, but if you Google Temple Grandin, it's spelled just like it sounds. You should be able to find that. One last thing I will say is that yes, everybody's going to receive a copy of the recording, the link to the recording on our YouTube channel, and all these slides. You're going to get this in your email, whatever email you used to register. And if you want to really do us a favor and provide a testimonial, give us some kind words about the webinars that you watch or about how we've helped you or how the webinars helped you. If you would be willing to send a testimonial, including pictures, oh my gosh, that would be so helpful for our website and for our social media. Just a little note, we would love that. You can send that to the office contact@cpgcares.net, or you can send that straight to me. My email is mmorris. I'll put it in the chat box, mmorris cpgcares.net. Again, you'll get all of this in your email later today. I hope that we hear again from you soon. I hope you all rushed to schedule your free consultations and I get to talk to you. And most of all, I thank you again for spending your time with us today. I hope you and your family have a very, very Merry Christmas or whatever you celebrate, and a Happy New Year. And we'll see you in 2024. Bye.